I got another story here that, yeah, it took place, started before I went in the army. Dad came down with me from Inverell down to Sydney to do the exams to get into the army. There was 32 of us tried out, and myself and a bloke by the name of Ron Sully passed the exam. The rest failed. So it was pretty hard to get in back then. But anyway, after I passed the exam, and Dad and myself went back on the train to Inverell, and he told me, he said, now, when you go in, whatever you do, don't volunteer for anything. Don't volunteer for any job, anything, even if it sounds great, even if it sounds good. Don't volunteer. And he said, and when you go on the range, he said, you'll be got to fire 3 shots at a target about 100 yards away, and they do a grouping, and he said, pull your 3rd shot away. And what he meant by that was that, you put 2 shots close together, pull the 3rd one away, which kept you outside an inch grouping. If you had an inch grouping, you could be made a sniper. So he was just giving me a bit of advice on different things, what to do. So it was, don't volunteer for anything, good or bad. And when you go out to onto the test fire range, pull away your 3rd shot. When we got called up, I told Ron Sully what Dad had said. And anyway, we went into Kapooka, and it's 3 months of basic training. In the first 6 weeks you do, you then have 1 duties week where you work in the kitchens, like they call the mess. They had the officers' mess, the sergeants' mess, and the OR's mess, which meant other ranks mess. But they were like the kitchen and dining room, etc. And of course, there were a lot of other duties as well. But when our duties week came up, we're standing in the line, and Ron was alongside me, and this sergeant came out, and he said, who can ride a Harley Davidson motorbike? And of course, out of the 30 blokes in the platoon, most of their arms went up because they thought they'd get a job, riding a motorbike, riding a Harley. I'd give Ron a nudge with my elbow. In other words, don't volunteer for anything. And we just stood there, and the sergeant pulled a group, about 10 out of and said, okay, you guys stand there. Then he went back and asked the rest of us, who can drive an international truck? Of course, quite a few arms went up again, and but we didn't move, and he took another group and put them in another spot. And then, of course, he asked who could ride a jeep, drive a jeep, and up went the arms again, and the rest of them were, or most of them were just put into another group. And then I can't remember what the last question was he asked, but it was something good, and the rest of the guys had put their hands up, but it was only Ron, Sully and myself left. And we're just standing there, and he came over to me and he pointed at this little Ferguson tractor with a mower, like a slasher underneath it. And he said, now don't tell me, he said, I know you come off the property. He said, don't tell me you can't drive a tractor. And I said, yeah, I can drive a tractor. And he said, okay, well, you get on the tractor, he said, and you got to mow all the lawns and golf courses and whatever in the Kapooka area. And there was a lot of it. And he said, and Sully, he said, you go with him and pick up sticks or rocks or anything that you come across as you're going around. So we had a great old week. We were driving around the tractor, mowing grass and just taking it in turns of driving the tractor, and the other one getting off and picking up a few sticks and putting them against the trees and, out of the road. We had a week's leave, then we went back and we trained on for another 5 weeks, and our second duties week came up, and went through the same procedure, and the blokes still put their hands up because they thought they were going to get that, ride the motorbike or whatever. But Dad had warned me about it, and I told Ron. So again, it finished up. There was only the two of us left, and it was a company sergeant major actually. He just came over to me and he said, "Do you know anything about shearing sheep?" And I said, "Well, I worked in the shearing sheds for 4 years before I come in, and Ron had done a bit too." And I said, "Oh yeah," and he said, "Well, the padre, that was the minister, he had about 18, 20 sheep. I can still see the sheep. They had about 3 or 4 years wool on them, and they had a blue ear tag, and it had 1RTB on the ear tag. 1RTB stood for First Recruit Training Battalion. But anyway, getting back to the sheep, he sent us up to see the padre up at the officers' mess. We went up, and the padre was a great bloke, and he came out and he showed us his sheep, and some of them, half the wool had fallen off, but a lot of wool had fallen off, but as I say, there's 3 or 4 years of wool on them, and they obviously didn't get anybody that could do it beforehand. Anyway, he took us down this little shed he had there, and all he had was hand shears, and they're fairly old and blunt, whatever. But anyway, we got a file and we sharpened them up the best we could. We decided to do a sheep each, and look, it's hard to explain. how the sheep were looking. I mean, I'd never used hand shears except just on a few fly-blown sheep at home, and Ron was pretty much the same, and we were cutting little bits and whatever and snipping away there, and I think by lunchtime we'd probably done about a quarter of a sheep each. So we decided that we'd both work on the one sheep, and we both went on to his sheep, just pulled what was, broke the wool away that was already cut on mine, and just let it go. We're putting the wool in all these corn bags the Padre had given us. Anyway, we eventually, in the day, we got the wool off the first sheep, and we finished my sheep as well. So we had two sheep shorn. They looked a bit like dinosaurs. You never saw anything like the job we'd done. It was shocking. But we got the wool off them, and as close as possible as we could to the skin. And that was a day's work, and we went up and we told him, he was pleased, really pleased. He brought us out a couple of bottles of beer, and we sat down and drank them outside the back of the officers' mess. Fantastic, and that went on for 7 days. But we both worked on the same sheep, and eventually got the wool off the 18 or 20 sheep that were there. It took us the full week. We drank quite a few bottles of beer, and the Padre was happy. The sheep, I assume, were happy because at least they were cool. And there was quite a few bags of wool there. But it was just I thought a funny story to tell, and somebody might be interested in listening to it. So that's how we then finished our basic training and marched out of Kapooka and went on to Ingleburn, where we went into corps training, and Ron was there the same as I was. We both were in the infantry, and we went there for infantry corps training. And what took place there, well, I'll tell on another story.